Okay, so container and vegetable gardening part 2. What to use for growing media. Now, that is so key. The heart and soul of any garden is the soil. And so in our particular case with these raised gardens, I really don't even want conventional soil in them because many times you're restricted on the quality of that soil. You've got all the insects and diseases that are in there. You also, you don't know what the drainage is, the organic matter. So I don't use any of these. When I'm using container gardens, I'm actually most of the times using a soil-less mixture. So combinations of peat moss and perlite and vermiculite. And again, I keep referencing everybody, read the Square Foot Gardening book. I love its principles. I love the concepts on how to use the soil and depth of soil, but I've kind of put our own spin on how to make the soil. The Square Foot Gardening book many times tells you to, it used to be anyway, I don't know what his revised program is now, but it used to be 1/3 vermiculite or perlite, 1/3 peat moss, and 1/3 compost. And that compost wants to be from 5 different sources. That can be really cumbersome to work, so it very well may have worked very well, but I didn't have the patience for any of that. Right around the time I read this book, I started learning about the Coast of Maine lobster compost and all the benefits of the chitin and the calcium in the shells and just how well it grows, and we were using it in our traditional vegetable gardens, getting great results. Then I realized that what we started doing was we're using the professional potting mixes on all our greenhouse production. So why not combine the two? So here's our formula. Let's take a peek at what we use to make our growing mix and actually what we're experimenting now to make things even easier and see if it makes a difference in growing. Take a look. Okay, so Luke and Gavin are going to be competing. We've got 2 square raised gardens, 6 inches deep, and they're going to be competing on what is growing the better garden. Gavin's actually over here now sketching out his garden and trying to get a plan as to what he wants to actually grow. Haven't told him yet that he's gonna have to eat everything he grows. We'll work on that one. But anyway, the soil. What we started using is, I found that this is what we use for all our commercial growing. So I know I can grow plants well in there, but there's no nutrients in those. And so instead of trying to source 5 different sources of compost and manure, when I started reading into the benefits of lobster compost, I realized that it was already a mixture of manure and compost. I believe there was leaf litter in there at one point, and the lobster shell, and it's all recycled, and I just love the program. I'm not a fan of organic for the sake of organic. I love organic because it just seems to grow better plants. And so what we kind of came up with our own little formula is we use 1 bale of Promix, the BMI, to 3 bags of lobster compost. Mix that all together. It grows extremely well, so we get the benefits of all the perfect growing conditions with all the nutrients and the benefits of lobster compost. Works awesome. We've been doing it for years. Now customers have been loving it. You don't even many times have to fertilize your gardens. So this is the mix that Gavin is going to be using. We're going to be mixing this up and filling Gavin's bin here. Now, that being said, because I love the organic, that Coast of Maine product so well, last year they came out with this product, and it is the raised bed mix. And so the benefit of this is it's already perfectly formulated, so there's no mixing. So we're going to test. We're going to grow some of the core same vegetables in both planter. This is the formula we've been using for a while. This one here is their new mix, but what I love about this is, again, the selection of the nutrients. Again, I am by no means blindly supportive of Coast of Maine, except for the fact that I just love all their products, and whatever they come out with, it just seems to work. So, but again, I don't like to test things out or preach without testing it. So we've grown it at the store, but I haven't used this in my own gardens yet, so we are. But this is what I love about it. Not only does it have peat moss and it's a perfect growing mix, but it has all the big players in the compost world. So we have not only compost and peat, but we have biochar, worm casting, dehydrated poultry manure, kelp meal, lobster meal, green sand, lime, and it's inoculated with the mycorrhizae. That is pretty much every big player in the organic nutrient world is all in one neat little bag, and there is no mixing. So you're going to see that Gavin's going to have to mix up these bales, a little bit more cumbersome, but I know it grows pretty well. But at the same time, I am interested to see how these plants, if there'll be a notable difference between the two, because this is so much easier and it has so many of the big players out there. So let's get filling beds. So step one was to bust open the potting soil. Hardest part of this whole process is just chopping it up. We find it easiest to work with snow shovels and just get in there and start chopping up all your big chunks. Now I'm gonna smooth it off and gonna make a nice flat area and spread it all out so it's just a few inches thick. Then we're gonna open up the lobster compost and spread it over the top of that. And then we're gonna mix it. Yes, you are. So now that the potting soil is all spread out and chopped up, I'm gonna turn around and spread the compost, dump our 3 bags of compost out on top of all the potting soil. And then they're gonna spread that out nice and even and neat over the top of all the potting soil to make it easier for mixing in.
Or are we?
Oh, you are. Okay, so now we've mixed it. We kind of pick it up and drop it. Now that's one time we've turned it over. Now we want to keep making sure, so now we're just going to move it again and pile it up in one more spot next to the bed. And if this is in the middle of your lawn, I would use a tarp. Sometimes we'll use a canvas and spread it all out on the canvas and just drag the canvas from one side to the next. Some of the hardest parts is just chopping up that potting soil and then moving these things around. But you can see it's still pretty clumpy in there. So we want to just kind of keep dropping it. Just really help spill it together and make it all nice and mixed in. Now we're going to move this whole pile from here to there. That's 2. And then the last time we're going to take it, move it in there, and Gavin's going to come out from behind the camera from filming, and he's going to start finishing mixing this pile. Okay, so the pile's all done up, nice and neat. You can see it's starting to look like more one uniform product now. Now for the third mix, just going to shovel it from here into the pile. And this formula, 1 bale of Pro Mix with 3 lobster compost, should fill a 6x6 garden, I mean a 4x4 garden, 6 inches deep, and then give us a little bit extra that we'll keep for touching up maybe some flower pots or such. But that's it. This bed will be filled in just a few minutes. All right, so that only took about 5 minutes to do. It is a bit of a work, but at the same time, this by far is going to be an easier mix to work with. So despite how it grows, I have to say that just being able to open this bag and dump it out in the bed is definitely a little bit of time saver. And there's no mixing at all. It's all perfectly mixed together. And so gonna come together a little bit faster. Okay, so we are coming to the tail end of filling these beds. Now, clearly, this was a lot faster. It only took a few minutes. We opened 5 bags, and Luke has more than enough to be filling his bed nice and neat all the way around. Gavin's clearly took a little bit more of a mess because he had to do a lot more work laying it all out, cleaning it all up, and then spreading it in. So now that technique I know works, but it definitely is a little bit messier and a little bit more work. This the mess was just open the bale, dump it in, and on first observations, clearly the looks of this growing media, and it's all dirt. This right here is all potting mix, and clearly this looks much richer. Okay, so the first 2 beds are full, and I have to say you can see from this angle here, if I get out of the sun, clear difference in the 2 soils. The one right here still looks like potting soil. This one here clearly looks and resembles more of a dark, rich soil, but I don't care what they look like up front. I just care they're gonna grow. We'll find over the next few weeks how they're gonna perform, and Luke and Gavin will be battling it out as to Gavin's mix is the potting soil with lobster compost, Luke's is the new bedding mix, and so we will see which one wins. But I have to say so far that I personally am starting to like the raised bed mix, purely just because of the amount of ingredients in there and the diversity of nutrient sources. Really has every big player: worm, castings, kelp, everything I said earlier. And the only negative I've actually found of the traditional mixes we've been using there has been it dries out really fast. The potting soil is not intended to hold water, and so it drains pretty fast. This right here, the mix itself, the raised bed mix, clearly seems to have more organic matter associated with it, and just gives me the appearance that it's going to hold on to moisture better. And as long as it has the ability to drain, that could alleviate all the excess water we need to use in our own version. So I like them both. Plus, there was absolutely no mixing with that raised bed mix. Just dump it in and go. And I think even with the math, 10 bags at $17, $170. It's not cheap. But at the same time, actually, it was only 5 bags. 5 bags at $17 a piece. The Pro Mix is usually in the $30 range, and lobster compost around $10 and change, depending on the time. So neither one of them are going through, but I guess if you add rototilling and amending traditional gardens, we're going to produce a tremendous amount of plants in these 2 little beds. So we'll see where it goes, but we're done for now. Thanks.